Hello everyone. I hope you're doing great and are taking care of your health in these COVID times. In this video, we will learn how to build an automation framework from scratch. There are a lot of people who have just started doing automation and are really struggling onto how to make an automation framework. And nowadays, a lot of companies have put an automation round in their interview process in which you need to build an automation framework, and using that framework you need to automate a particular flow. So keeping that in mind, I'm making this video. The framework that we will be making will be based on page object model. It will support multiple browser execution, and it will be generating an extend report whenever the test execution completes. Along with these, it will also take the screenshot whenever a test case fails, and it will also retry the failed test cases. So now let's get into it. So let's start by making a new project. So I'm going to new, then project, and I would be making the project as a Maven project. So yes, let me name the group ID as com.samir and artifact ID, which would be our project ID or the project name, as YouTube framework. So this is fine, this is fine. Finish. And yeah, okay, so our project is ready now. Let me enable the auto import because I will be adding dependencies in this project. So as we can see, our source main Java and the source test Java are already ready here, and I've already taken all the dependencies that I would be using in this framework making. So I've pasted it down here so that it saves our time. So I'm copying it from here and I'm pasting it here. Let me remove this, and yes, this is now ready. So I've added very basics dependencies here. So this one is for TestNG, this one is for Selenium, and this is for the extent reporting that we will be generating after the execution is completed. And this is for, as we are making the project as the Maven project, so we will be compiling it by using the Maven command. So this is for that. We have mentioned the Maven compiler plugin here, and in the configuration under the suit XML test, I mentioned the testng.xml file, which I will be making the project, through which we can also run the project. Now let's start making the folders that we will be requiring in the framework making. So I'll be making 3 folders here. One will be drivers, inside which we will be adding the Chrome driver and the Firefox driver. One folder for the screenshots, inside which we will be saving the screenshots whenever the test case fail. And the last one will be the folder for reports. So here we will be generating the report and will be putting under this particular folder. Now let's make the TestNG file through which we will be running our code, and we will be mentioning the test that we will be running or the class that we will be running. So let me add the testng.xml file. To get the Chrome driver and the Firefox driver, you can go to their website and then you can directly download it from here. So for Chrome driver, you can download it from here depending on the Chrome version that you're using. So if you go inside, you will be getting all the types of Chrome driver, okay, for Linux, Mac and Windows machine. And same for the Firefox. You can go to their website and then you can download the latest version of the Firefox driver. So I have downloaded it. Now I will be pasting it into my drivers folder, which will be here. So here we will be making a page object model, which means every page will be having a class of its own So let's say there are two pages, one is home page and one is login page. So everything which I will be doing on the home page will be having a class of its own, and everything that I will be performing on the login page will be having a class of its own. So now I will be making three packages under the source main Java. My first package will be named as page events, under which we will be having different classes for different pages and we will be operating on those. My second package will be having the name as page objects, inside which we will be adding all the XPaths, IDs, or all the identifiers. And my third package will be of the name utils. So everything that we will be using across the project will be inserted under this particular package. I will not be using this resource, so I will be deleting this. And inside the source test Java, I will be making one class which is my base test. So now we have the whole skeleton of our framework ready. So now let's jump to the coding part. Now let's start writing our base test. So here I will be using four annotations, four TestNG annotations, which will be before test, before method, after method, and after test. So let me just make a method inside this, and let me just put a very basic name here and save for these annotations. This will be before method, and this will be after method, and this will be after test method. Now let's make our WebDriver. So public static WebDriver. So this WebDriver I will be initializing under my before method annotation, and I will be quitting it in the after method annotation. So let me just do that for the after method. Okay, and now I will be making a common method to set up the driver, which will be public void setup driver, and this method will be taking a value of the browser name. Okay, so if let's say if my browser name is equals ignore case Chrome, I will be initializing the Chrome driver. Else if my browser name equals to Firefox, I will be initializing the Firefox driver. And else that will be my default case or my null case, I will be initializing the Chrome driver here. This should be Firefox. So now let's put the values under this system dot set property webdriver dot chrome dot driver, and we need to pass the path of the Chrome driver, which will be system dot get property user dot direct, which will be giving the path of this particular directory of the project, plus file separator. I am using file separator here because we basically use different annotation for the Linux machine or for the Windows machine or for Mac. So file separator will be working in all the operating system, plus drivers, which is the folder that we made, plus again file dot separator, plus the Chrome driver. This is done. Now let's do driver equal to new Chrome driver. So this will be initializing our Chrome driver here. And same goes for Firefox. We need to mention Geeko here, and this should be Firefox driver. And my default case is for the Chrome, so I will be pasting the same here. Okay, so this is also done. So now I will be calling this method from the before method. So let me call it from here, and I will be sending the browser name here. So this browser name we will be picking it up from the TestNG file. For that I need to use the @parameters annotation, and inside that I need to mention the key through which we will be picking this particular value. So this should be browser name, and then we will be parameterize this particular method. So we will be picking up the value from the TestNG, which will be getting inserted here, and then which will be passed into this particular method, and accordingly the driver will be initiated. So after initializing the driver, let's maximize the window, which will be driver dot manage dot window dot maximize. It will be maximizing the window, and then let's open the URL that we need to open using the get command, driver.get command, and inside this I will be basically passing the value. So we will be using utils package here, and we will be inserting the URL into a particular class here. So I will be making it as an interface, because all the data types that we will be putting it inside the interface will be automatically public, static, and final. So let me make it as constants, and then let me put a string value as the URL. So this will be, so we will be basically using Amazon's website to automate our particular single flow. So I am putting the URL as https www.amazon.in. Okay, so here now I am basically putting the value as constants.url. Let's put the implicit weight as well here, driver.manage dot times out dot implicitly weight, and let's put the value as 10 and the unit as timeout dot seconds. So everything related to the driver is now done. Now let's start working on the extent report that we will be generating whenever the test execution completes. For the extent report, I've already coded all the lines, so I will be just pasting down into my project. So we will be initializing the report here. I am importing all the classes that are required. Okay, and in the before test, I will be initializing the report. These are very basic commands. You can find it on internet on multiple websites. So I've given the path as the user directory plus the reports project that we have made, and then we will be generating the report as automation report.html, and then we are putting the document title, report title, we are setting the theme, and then these are all just additional information which we are putting into the report. And in the before method I will be creating a test. So let me put it on here. So for the test method, we basically need to pass the value here, which will be method and then test method. Let me just import the class here as well. Okay, so it will be basically picking up whichever method is getting executed, and then it will be creating a test according to that particular method name. And in the after method, we will be basically putting on the results that we will be getting from that particular method name. So let me put it down here, and then we need to basically get the results using itest result, and let me name it as result. So these are all just additional values which we can basically add into our particular reporting. So yes, so if the result is a success, we will be logging it as a pass. If it's a failure, we will be logging it as a failure. Okay, and then we are just putting all the color as red and green. And in the after test, we will be basically flushing out the report, which is extent.flush. So everything related to the reporting and related to our base test now is ready. So as we will be taking the screenshot whenever the test case fails, now let's work on the suit listener class. So here I will be making a class with the name of suit listener, and this class will be basically implementing the I test listener. So as soon as you implements it, it will be telling you to implement all the methods. So on the on test failure, we will be basically taking the screenshot. Now let's first make a file name string. So this will be basically the name that we will be putting on that particular screenshot. So let me take the path first, file dot separator, and we will be putting the screenshot under the screenshots folder. So this will be screenshots plus separator, and then let's give the name as itestresult.getMethod.getMethod name. So we will be getting the screenshot with the method name. Now let's take the screenshot using the screenshot method, which is take screenshot, and here we will be getting the driver base test dot driver dot get screenshot as, which will be output dot file. Now let's copy the screenshot, which will be file utils dot copy file. Let me just zoom in first. Okay, so this will be f, which is the file which we have taken here, and then it will be new file, and inside that we will be giving the file name plus .png, which is the extension of that particular screenshot. So let me surround it with a try catch block. So whenever a test case fails, we will be taking the screenshot, and then we will be mentioning the name as the method name plus .png. Along with this, we will be retrying the failed test case as well. So whenever a test case fails, we will be retrying it, and the count of retry can also be managed. Okay, so I will be making a class here, and I am naming it as retry analyzer, and this retry analyzer class will be basically implementing the I retry analyzer interface. So let me implement the method. Okay, I will be taking a count here, which will be starting from 0, and I will be taking a retry count here. So this retry count will be the count on which you want to retry a particular test case which got failed. Okay, so if I'm putting it as 1, the test case will be retried once. If it's 2, it will be retried twice. Okay, and inside this particular method, we need to write the condition for it. So while this count is less than the retry count, I will be incrementing the count and then return true. And this retry analyzer class will be managed by the suit listener class. So if I open this, I need to implement the suit listener class with the I annotation transformer. Okay, and I am implementing the method. So this is the method which will be calling the retry analyzer. Inside this, I need to mention the method name, which is itest annotation dot set retry analyzer, and then I need to give the class name, which is retry analyzer dot class. So whenever a test case fails, it will be going to this particular retry analyzer class, and then it will be retrying that particular failed test case. So now let's make a class inside which we will be writing the methods which will be returning the element on the basis of the identified type. So I am making a new class here and I am naming it as element fetch, and I am making a method here which will be returning me the web element get web element, and it will be having two parameters, which first one will be the identifier type and the other one will be the identifier value. This is also string. Okay, and inside this I will be making a switch case which will be taking the value of the identifier type, and my first case is id. So if my identifier type is of id, I will be returning the value as base test dot driver dot find element by dot id, and inside this I will be passing the value of it. This is my first case, and like this I will be having multiple cases here. So it can be css, so it will be returning the value as by dot css selector. It can be tag name, so here it will be tag name as well, and it can be xpath, so it will be returning the value by fetching the element by xpath. And let me make a default case as well, inside which I will be returning the value as null. And similarly I will be making another method which will be returning me the list of elements on the basis of the identifier type. So here just the difference will be driver.find elements instead of find element. This should be get list web elements. So now throughout the project, whenever we will be fetching the elements, we don't really need to write driver.find element again and again. We will be just using this particular method and we will be passing the identifier type and the identifier values in this, and it will be returning the element. Now let's start automating the flow. For that, let's go to Amazon's website. So this is the Amazon's website and this is our home page of the Amazon. And if I click on the sign in button, I will be getting redirected to the login page. Okay, so here we will be operating on two pages. This is the login page and this is the home page. Okay, so now I'll be making two classes for both of these pages into my framework. So in the page events, I'm making a class and I'm naming it as homepage events, in which I will be adding all the operations that I will be doing on the homepage. And I will be making another class here which will be the login page events. That's it. And then in the page objects, I will be making two interfaces here because we will be adding all the XPaths or all the identifiers in this particular class or interface. So if I'm making it as an interface, any data type that I will be declaring into it will be automatically public static final. And as our XPath doesn't actually change, so it's better to make it as an interface. So I'm naming it as homepage elements, and another interface with the name of login page elements. Now let's go back to the Amazon's website. So if I click on this or on this button, it will be redirecting me to the login page. So now let's find the XPath for this button. So we have the text here, so we will be using that to find the XPath. And the tag name is span, so it should be this. So we have got the XPath. Now let's put it on our project. We go to home page elements. So I'm making a string here, and this will be sign in button, and this is the XPath for this. And now if I click on this, I will be redirecting to the login page. So I will be checking that if I have got on the login page correctly or not. For that, I will be checking if this login text is getting displayed or not. And after that, I will be entering the value into this email ID field. So we need the identifier for this login text and for this email ID field. Now let's find that. So we have the login text here, and the tag name is h1. So the XPath should be this. Okay, so if we have find the XPath, let's put it in the login page elements. Login text, which is this. Uh, and we have the email ID field, which has an ID here. So we will be copying the ID, email address, and we have pasted on the ID here. Now let's write the code to operate on those elements, for which I will be going to the homepage events. Here I will be making a method click on sign in button, inside which I will be initializing my element fetch class. New element fetch, and now I will be doing element fetch dot get web element, and then I will be putting the XPath here because we are identifying the sign in button by XPath, and we will be picking the value from the homepage elements like homepage elements dot sign in button. And now I will be using the click operation here. That's it. Now let's go to the homepage events. Here I will be making two methods. First one will be asserting that the login page is opened or not, and second one will be adding the value into the email ID field. Verify login page opened or not. So whenever an element is displayed on the page, we can find the element and then we can fetch the element by putting into a list. Okay, so whenever we are fetching the list of that particular element, if the size of the list is greater than 0, it means the element is present on the page. Okay, so we will be using the same logic here to assert that the login text is getting displayed on the page or not. So element fetch equal to new element fetch. I'm making an object of the element fetch class, and then assert dot assert true, and inside this I will be fetching the list of the login element xpath comma login page elements dot login text. This will be returning the list of the login text, and then I will be checking that its size is greater than 0 or not. And if not, I will be giving a message that login page did not open. Okay, so if the list of the size of that particular element is greater than 0, it means the element is present on the page. Now let's make another method to write on that particular email ID field. Enter email ID, again this line of code, and then fetch dot get web elements. So the email ID field we fetched using ID, so I will be putting ID here, and then login page elements dot email ID address dot send keys, and I am putting any value here, which is samir@gmail.com. So that's it. So these are the things that we will be doing through our automation framework. Now let's make a test class which will be doing all the operations and which will be having the flow of our code. So I'm going to the source test Java and I'm making a sample test here. Okay, so this class will be extending the base test, and inside this we will be having the @test annotation, and we will be having a sample method for email entering, which will be void. And inside this I will be initializing the home page events and the login page events because I need to use their methods inside this. So let's do that. And now I will be calling that method. Click on sign in button. After that I will be making the login page events. Login page events, and then I will be calling the login page events methods. So first I will be verifying that the login page is opened or not, and then I will be entering the value. So that's it. Now the code is ready, and now comes the final step, which is to write the testng.xml file. So let's do that now. Let's go here, and I've already written that, so I will be copying it from here and then I'm pasting it here. So here you can see I've added the listener tags inside which I mentioned the suit listener class, through which it will be basically taking the screenshot and it will be applying the retry logic as well. And inside the test tag I have mentioned the parameter name, which is the browser name, which will be basically deciding on which particular browser you want to run the code. If you want to run the code on Firefox, you can mention the value as Firefox here, and otherwise you can mention it Chrome. And inside the classes tag I mentioned the class name, which is sample test here. And now everything is ready, so now let's run the code. I will be running this testng.xml. So it will be initiating the Chrome driver, and then it will be clicking on the sign in button, and then it will be verifying if the assert is passed or not, and then entering the text. Okay, so we can see everything is passed now, and we have got the report as well here. So this is an HTML report. Now let's open it in a browser. Let's open it in Safari and see how the report looks like. So this is the report that we have got, and we can see the test case which is passed here. We can also add the loggers here. For that we can go to any particular method and we can add, let's say, base test dot logger dot info, and we can add anything here. So clicking on sign in button. Okay, And similarly, we can do it on the login page as well. So I am adding another logger here. So I'm adding verifying that the login page opened or not, and then entering the email ID. Let's run it again and see if we have got the loggers or not. So the execution is completed. Now let's open the report. So here you can see that we have got the loggers here as well, and then we have the test case which is passed. Now let's try to fail this particular test case and let's see if the retry logic is working or not, and if we are getting the screenshots as well or not. So for that, I can basically go into this particular field, and then I can fail this particular test case by putting the value as equal to 0. But because the element is there, this assert will be failing and the screenshot will be taken. And as soon as the test case failed, it will be going to the retry logic. And the first test case will be marked as a skip, and the second one will be marked as a pass or fail depending on its result. So as we have a skip scenario as well here, so let's move the skip scenario here as well in the base test. So I will be adding another condition here. So whenever my test case skips, I will be marking it as yellow, and I will be logging its status as skip. Okay, now let's go to TestNG and now let's the code and see if we are getting the screenshot or not, and if the retry logic is working as expected or not. So it has opened the web page, it is clicking on the login page, and you can see it has again opened the web page, which means the previous execution got failed. Now let's go to the IntelliJ. So here you can see this is ignored, and this is again the retry logic in which we can see that the assertion is failed. And you can see that we have got the screenshot as well here. So here is the screenshot of the login page. Now let's open the report and see the results here. So here you can see that we've got the skip test case and the failed test case. So our retry logic and our screenshot are working as expected. Let's run the code on Firefox and see if the parameter logic is working or not. So for that, I will be entering the value as Firefox here. So if I go to the base test, it will be going under this condition and it will be opening the Geeko driver. So this should be Geeko driver and not Chrome driver. Now let's go back to the TestNG file and let's try to run this. And we can change the condition now to the correct one so that the retry logic doesn't take much time. So yeah, now let's run the code and see if we are able to run the same code on Firefox or not. So you can see that the Firefox browser has been opened. It has clicked on the element and then it has entered the text as well. And let's try to open the report. So now we will be getting the updated report, and you can see that the test case has been passed and we have got the right report. And as this is a Maven project, you can also integrate the project with Jenkins, and you can run your test using the command nvn test. So we have successfully made an automation framework which is based on a page object model which supports multiple browser execution and which generates an automation extend report whenever the execution completes. It also takes the screenshot whenever a test case fails, and it also retries the test cases which got failed the first time. I hope that you have liked the video and you have learned from this video. Do like and share this video if you find the video helpful, and do let me know the feedback in the comment sections. Also, subscribe to my channel as I've already made a lot of videos which I will be putting in very soon. Thank you everyone.